So, what is behavioral targeting? That's a really good place to start. And whilst we have a behavioral targeting module at Fresh Relevance, actually, we could argue behavioral targeting extends far past what we're talking about today. As you both mentioned, sort of abandonment emails, those really are a part of behavioral targeting. We are watching that behavior and we're targeting individuals with relevant messaging off the back. So, you're already doing behavioral targeting, you'll be doing it across all of your marketing campaigns, whether or not you're using this wording. But what our behavioral targeting module allows you to do is go a step deeper. So on here, I've got the sort of 5 elements that we think are sort of the biggest ticket items within behavioral targeting, but goes a lot deeper as always. So we've got several triggered alerts that I mentioned. So being able to do price drop, back in stock, and low stock triggers. So this is looking at individuals who have browsed particular products which have since changed. So be that they were out of stock when browsed, they have now come back in stock, or whether that is that let's say Chris, one of your mattresses, was at a certain price point when G came to your website, but then that has since dropped, and we can target G in particular to let him know the price has dropped rather than just anyone who's been on the website. The other part of it, and that's we're actually going to start on number 4 today, is the segment builder side. So you've probably had me show you the sort of system architecture in the past, and we are picking up so much data from your website, particularly in terms of that behavioral data. So what are people browsing? What are people carting, purchasing? How many products are they looking at? How many times are they coming to your website? All of this data we're picking up, you can then use to build out custom segments. Once you've got that segment, there's 2 core things you can do. You can look at those analytics and learn more in terms of how that syncs up with other data. So what is that customer's lifetime value? What is a group of customers sort of category affinity or topic affinity, I guess, for you, Emily? And also you can export those email addresses. So this is great for retargeting, whether it's through paid for advertising, whether it's social media following, whether it's just to send out a campaign. So Emily, perhaps you've got a new course launching within the sciences, and we could target users who have been browsing that category of content to then target them outside of Fresh Relevance as well. So that's just a very sort of high level. Is that news to you, or were you aware of all these features? Going to pick on you, Emily.
Yeah, I was aware of all of those.
Fabulous. And Chris, hopefully the answer is yes, because I think I showed you the slide the other day.
Yes, he did.
Sorry for the reused content. So let's do what we're excited for, and that's to actually hop into the system. So we'll go straight into our segments today. So that's on the left-hand bar under data and then segments. Now, as always, we are in our demo store, which is all about skiing and snowboarding, and we build a lot of segments to show people as well. So you probably won't have a list of segments as extensive as ours. But now we're on the page, what we can see down here is a list of all the different segments we've made. You'll see that they nicely categorize themselves with our little circle system as to whether a segment is complete, so it's been fully built, whether it's incomplete, so still generating, or if it's expired after a certain period of time. I just scroll down here. So if we look at some of these ones that I've built out for today, we've got some nice summary data about that group of people, in particular the number of records, so that you make sure you're looking at a robust segment. If that's coming up with numbers in the sort of tens, then it probably isn't a wide enough group of people to sort of target. So what we will do is we'll create a segment and we'll look at the behavioral side of it to start with. So at the top here, going to click create segment, which is where we are given our choices. So behavioral, that's where we're going to start, and that's looking at individuals and what they do. Product change is looking towards those alert emails I mentioned, so back in stock, price drop, and low stock. You can also import a segment. There's nothing exciting to see behind this option, so I won't demonstrate it, but we can essentially import different segments from your other platforms. That works via an FTP. So providing that whatever platform you're using can export a data file into an SFTP, we can then pick it up and suck it into our system. So think things like in your CRM platforms, if you are doing any segmentation, you can bring that in to Fresh so that you can make sure that that is consistent across all of your platforms and touch points. So let's from here go into that behavioral one. So being as you've both seen Fresh a little bit already, this page should feel fairly familiar to you. As in our triggered emails and in our slots, you have a left-hand pane where you have options to build out rules and what you want to happen to this segment on completion. And on the right hand, we have what would normally be a logic tree, but this is more of adding requirements with an and structure. So we'll start with adding rules and trying to select which customers that we would like to contact. So if we go into person, we can see information about that individual. So again, if you are importing any data, you can get to that through person fields. We have some automated segments you can use, like lapsed buyers, new buyers, top buyers, and disengaged visitors. I can send you some documentation to where the definitions of those live. But what you're probably going to find most useful is person history. So looking at that activity on a website. So as an example, perhaps we want to identify our lapsed buyers. So people who bought something, let's say 6 months ago and have not purchased anything in the last 3 months. So we can use the rule has purchased and say the person must have purchased any product in the last, pick big time frames now, I can't do the maths. We'll do 180 and 90 days. Hopefully that's right. So the user has purchased anything within 180 days, and we could add another rule on to say that they have purchased nothing, so no products in the last 90 days. These have grouped with an and, so we're essentially saying someone who made a purchase 3 to 6 months ago but has not since. So let's say we want to go with that segment. What we can do is save it and we'll get that generating. It can take a little while to generate segments. It depends at the timeframes you're looking over and how wide your requirements are. Our demo store is nice and quick, so that one's already built. So from here, I'll show you the how we can look at the behaviors of an individual group. So I'm back on the main segments page again, where we click the create button. And I'm going to go into this one I made earlier. And what I can do is click on the 3 dots and onto this reporting icon, which will take me into the analytics for this segment. So what this page is really great for is getting to understand your customers. It can be really great if you can segment out, let's say, more problematic groups of customers, and you can use this data to try and understand what barriers there might be. You can use it for figuring out, for example, if I scroll down, we can see when people are purchasing. So again, this wasn't a good example because we pulled out non-purchasers, but we could start to look into that and you can see when is it best to contact individuals of certain groups based on when they're most active on your website. We can also look at their product behavior. So what products are they looking at? Based on tags, for example, what are they purchasing and what are they browsing? So you can really get to know your segments. But where the power comes in is with comparing a segment. So I can pick another one. So I always forget to find one with data. So it might say 0, but you will see that we get a side by side with a beautiful lime green colour. And then you can actually compare the differences very visually between your two groups. We can see them starting to poke in here. So that's how you can understand your different groups and your different segments. If I just go back again, and if I hop into the segment we created, so I can just click on it, you'll see I didn't give it a name. So I'll show you where we can do that. So we looked, oh, this isn't the one. Sorry, bear with me a moment. So if we go into this behavioural segment, we can see that there were still 2 tabs for us to look at. So we have an options tab. So this is where you can name your segment as well as deciding whether you want to regenerate your segment. Now, there's 2 different ways you can use segments and whether you want to regenerate. For I'd say 9 times out of 10, you would want to regenerate your segment. Most often we see it every day, and that will keep that group of people up to date because every day we'll run through and check we've got the right people in that group. If you're using it to send sort of price drop emails, things like that, then it's really important that we keep refreshing those to make sure we're being relevant to customers. You might not want to regenerate a session, so have this blank. If, let's say, you created a segment to put them on a campaign and you don't want them to drop from that campaign. So you've got maybe a 2-week campaign across your channels and you want the group of people you've defined to continue seeing that data and that content. So in that case, you wouldn't regenerate, but most of the time you will want to. You can also choose when in the day you want that to happen. So if you are sequencing it with other imports, for example, or Chris, I know when we spoke for the price drop, that there's sort of a point in the day where all of your sale items go live. So we'd want to make sure that that the segment runs after that piece is completed. Any questions on the options here for a segment and the regeneration?
No.
Perfect. Then if I hop to the post build, these are all optional again, but you are able to upload these via a channel. So whatever ESP you're using, we may be able to link up to, as well as other platforms, or again, an FTP. So we can also be sending the emails of these people out to one of your secure locations. So you don't have to manually download the emails. You can just have them automatically being taken into your system. Pretty much how I said that the import works, but backwards. Those are the post-build functions. The only other quick thing I wanted to show you, if I go again back to that segments landing page where we initially created our segment, for our behavioral segments, again, if I click the 3 dots at the end, you'll see that there's an email icon. Click that and that's going to download those email addresses for you. So just how I said you can export it to a certain place, you can do it manually as well. So if you've got a one-off campaign and you want to target a certain group of people, you could just download it. If it's an ongoing campaign, then we could set up a file transfer so you can pick those up automatically. So before we move off behavioural segments, maybe we can have some use cases. So Emily, have you got anything in mind about how you'd want to target people?
So I'm looking at this from 2 different angles at the moment. So because obviously you can use these segments for triggering emails, but you can also use them for creating dynamic blocks on the website, can't you? Yeah.
Yeah,
So I have a really specific use case with that actually is kind of a question at the same time. Is that right?
they're my favorites.
Um, so we are looking to, if someone sorry, and let me get this right because this is something that someone else described to me. But if we want to have someone log in to our website, and they might be from a certain school and they might be a Key Stage 3 teacher, um, are we able to use the behavioral data to kind of personalize the blocks on the page with the upload? So we've uploaded information. Sorry, does this make sense?
Yeah, so let me see if I can repeat it back to you. So you've got some information that's on your people, on the visitors that come to your site. When they log in, you know information about them,
Mm-hmm.
and we're wondering whether we can target based on that information.
Yeah, so we can then upload into so data from our particular CRM, so Salesforce, up into the behavioral targeting, and we can use that data as well as data from them browsing, from them logging in, etc., to create sort of a dynamic content block to then populate. Can we then populate it with their school and the fact that we know that they're a teacher and things like that because we've uploaded that information?
Yeah, so I think
Sorry,
what
that's
we're
quite a complex use case.
No, 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 I love it. I think we're slightly straying away from behavioral targeting because it's more about what
Yeah,
we know about users. But we can absolutely do that. So using our import module, we can pick up that information. Potentially, we could do it from the script on the website as well, which would cut out that middle step, but the accuracy and the coverage won't be as high as what you have in your other platforms. But we could pull that in and then we can use that text to personalize banners. We can use it, and essentially it would sit under person and in a person field.
right, okay.
So if I pull that in, let's see if we've got any. So there's some core fields as standard, but they're called X fields. Yeah, they're not coming up here for me, but yeah, we can set up additional files against a person, or sorry, additional information against a person, and then you could use that in your triggered email to say if this person is Key Stage 3 teacher, send this content,
Yes.
and so on and so on.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was looking for. That's great. And can I ask another question that is about behavioral targeting specifically?
Absolutely.
So if you let me get this right. We can have the data, so the behavioral data, so we can say, right, someone has browsed this particular product and spent this long on this particular blog post, etc. And we can segment actually within Fresh Relevance. What is the benefit of doing that over having the fire hose?
Yes, that's a good question. So fire hose, well, it kind of it does
And then,
exactly what it sounds. It just
yeah.
fires out a lot of data. So
Mhm.
in terms of the data, they are the same. You can kind of do the same things with it, but it's whether you've got the tools to do to analyze that fire hose data and to pull out the information in the right format.
Right.
Um, the other, I guess, benefit of Fresh is our system's built to keep doing it. So I'm guessing you could probably get to this information with a lot more time with the Firehose file, but
Mm.
then you'd have to go through all of those potentially manual steps again each time you want to redraw the segment.
Mhm.
So that's in terms of targeting outside of Fresh. In terms of targeting inside of Fresh, it's being able to potentially have an efficiency. So let's say we wanted to create segments for you, Emily, of um, those key stages. So we've got key stage
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, and we can make those segments. They're always going to stay on top, always using the most relevant browse behavior or purchase behavior, however you want to look at it. And then we can use that across our other content. If you are going to get at that data from the fire hose, then you need to suck it back into Fresh to then use it to determine which trigger program to send, for example.
That makes sense. Okay. And with using just the behavioral targeting, we can upload information, so we can use data that we have in our CRM to complement the behavioral targeting, and we don't need to feed it, because it'd be better a fire hose into like a CDP, wouldn't it? Whereas if you're doing everything actually within Fresh. Sorry, I've just talked myself into the answer. That's great. Thank you.
They're the best answers that I could give. But yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things, isn't it? Data really is power these days, and everyone knows it and everyone has it available. But it is those next steps of what you can actually do with the data. Um, so yeah, that's then. We mentioned about looking at certain product affinities, for example. So what I'll just do, if I grab some of these rules out, let's go to the browsing history. So Emily, let's say that you're about to launch a new course about sciences or some new content. So we could look at products with a tag or tag value, tags being essentially another word for categories in Fresh. And then we can have a look in here. Obviously, we've not got your categories, but let's just pick one of these brands, for example. So we can say if that person, anyone who's browsed a product within that category, and then we could say something like at least once for anyone who has. And then we put a time frame on it. So again, let's put something like 30 days in. Actually, you could run this and find that you're picking up so many people because there's a lot of people browsing across your products. So maybe you want to say, okay, they must have browsed at least 3 products, so 3 books or articles within that science category. So there's different ways at getting at that intent as well. Chris, any ideas or use cases you'd like to see built out from your perspective?
The price drop one that we looked at the other day was quite interesting, and I've had a little stab at it. But I did have a question about the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you've got the and function. Is there an or functionality as well? So, for example, has anyone browsed this product or this product but not purchased in the last 7 days?
Absolutely. So it is only available on some of our rules, but you can see here where we've got this tag value brand, we can actually stack them in here. So for your example, if you want to look at people who have browsed sizes single or medium, oh, well, just talk across your singles, I guess, Chris, is enough categories for us to look at, but you can stack them in here. So let's put a couple in. So you can see these have become an or within one filter, but the separate filters will become an and. So you could say browsed any of those brands and has purchased no products. And again, let's go 30 days. So you can put ors in like this, but not between them. So you couldn't say have browsed or have purchased nothing, but we could say have browsed X or Y or Z and not purchased.
Okay, yeah, because what I was hoping was I could do it based on the product SKU, but we'll have to do it on the tags instead. But that answers my question. Thank you.
No problem. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. One of my favorite rules is the session count. It's one that's completely underrated, and this is great for understanding someone's intent. So how frequently have they come to the website recently? That's a really nice one. You can also use this custom signal one. So if you did want to make sure you're deduplicating against any of your triggered campaigns, that is also available to you. So I think that probably wraps up the behavioral segmentation piece. From here, we'll be talking more about the alerts. So, Emily, I don't know whether you've got any other questions or if you really want some time back. I think we're at the end of what you were interested in today, but obviously, welcome to stay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to have to duck off now for another meeting, but thank you so much. That was really helpful.
No problem. And I've wrote down a couple of bits, so we'll be in touch to help you get those ideas moving.
Fab, thank you.
No problem. Have a great day, Emily.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye. So from here, Chris, you've got us all to yourself. So let's crack on and look at those alerts. So again, we're going to go to creating a segment, but this time we're going to go on a product change. So it sounds like you've already found your way most of the way there. There is one rule in particular you definitely need to use, and that is the product change rule. And this is going to determine what type of trigger it is. So in this list, we have two based on price, one of them being a flat change, so £10, for example, one being the price drop percentage, which would be 10%. So you can use either of those, or the back in stock if that's what you're looking at, or low stock. So let's have a look at that back in stock. Wait, it wasn't back in stock, was it? It's the price drop one. So just remind me, Chris, do you have, I remember you've got your sort of 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off cycle. Are the price drops always the same, or do they fluctuate period on period?
So they're usually the same, but it's not like a flat 50% off, even though that's what we market as a sale. So the best way the way I built the segment myself was price drop of at least 30%, because that will then catch all products that have changed in price when we go into the promotion change on Tuesday.
Perfect. I was going to say you can pretty much put whatever in there. If you're already always using those same prices, then yeah, you could go there, or say price drop of a penny, for example, if you want to be including all of yours. If you do, let's say in future, you have some smaller value products, we would recommend using both the price change and the price drop, just so that if, let's say you've got a £5 product, if it drops by 30%, it's still quite a small discount that you might not want to send an email about. So that might be something just to bear in mind for future. So let's say that the price change is greater than, let's say 10, so £10 in this case. So if that's all you wanted to target, every product there, then that could be as far as your rules go. What you might want to do is click on the count button. We've got 0 products matching that because none of our demo assets are on sale, unfortunately. But you would get a count up here that shows you just how many products would meet that requirement. You can also click on the preview products, and that opens up this preview tab, which will actually show you which products meet those as well. So you've got a nice little sense check that we're picking up the right products. The only other thing we need to do, well, in terms of picking our people, is on this options tab. So we've done some basic rules, but I'll show you how we could take that to the next level in a moment. But we do need to think about our options and how many days we're scanning. So there's 2 different fields here, one being how many days we're scanning for product changes. So for you, Chris, here, being as pretty much all of your stock would be on sale at some point during a 30-day period, we probably want to pull that down a bit. Maybe something like 21 days would cover, I mean, it's a bit longer than sort of that 2 weeks, so it gives you a bit of breathing room either side. And then how many days are scanned for people that browse that product? So we'll leave that at 30 days, for example. And what this means is we're going to count any products that have dropped price in the last 21 days. And we're going to pull the people who have seen those products in the last 30 days into this group. So how many days are we looking for drops? How many days are we happy that someone would still be interested in that product? Perhaps even something slightly higher would work for you, Chris. We record browse data up to 45 days. So you could go to 45 days there, being as your sort of path to purchase could be a little bit more extended. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Yeah. Can you blend rules between the price drop and behavioural? So you could have that they've checked any products that have had a price change in 14 days, browsed in the last 30 days but not purchased?
Good question. So not in the segment, but when we move over to the triggered side of it, we could say that they must not made a purchase before we decide whether to send them that campaign.
Okay.
So yeah, let's look at that in a moment. That's a really nice idea. That should be in here, I think. Fabulous. So again, we've got that regenerate. Chris, again, there might just be a little bit of thought here in that sequencing based on how your model works. There'd be no issue with this regenerating every day, even though we know that, let's say, there's, well, I guess about 12 to 13 days where we're not going to be picking up new products, but there would be no harm doing that. By having it generate every day as well, you're not at risk of missing a day if that sequencing bends, or, let's say that there's some issue getting the discounts live one day, we can then pick that up a few days later. Then the final thing that we need to do is on the post build tab, is right at the bottom, there's an option about generating a signal. And all we need to do in this list is check the relevant one. So in this case, a price drop. What I'm just going to do is call this Daisy Fresh Focus so that you can see it coming up as we move into the other areas. So if I save that now. So at this point, let's say we've picked out the right products, and then what we'll do is if I go into our triggers, we'll have a new option available ready for us to start building a program. And everything from this point onwards, Chris, works exactly the same way as all of the other triggered emails work in terms of creating a program, rules for who to send it to. So we can see here, it's popped up, price drop, Daisy Fresh Focus, April 22. And this is where we'd add a rule that they must have purchased no products in, should we say 30 days, Chris, or something? We can go much longer with purchases.
Yeah, let's go 30 days.
Lovely. So you'd say, if we think about this, so we've built the segment, we've picked the products that have dropped in price, We've then picked the people that have browsed those products since before it dropped in price. That sends us over to this area. We're then refining that further to say, and of those people, if anyone's purchased in the last 30 days, we don't want to send to them. And what we'd end up with is your price drop campaign would be in the yes column. So purchased nothing in the last 30 days. Yes. So yes, they've purchased nothing. So we'll show them the campaign, and we could do nothing for anyone who know they have purchased in the last 30 days. And that would be it pretty much built out. So there's quite a few steps involved, but they're fairly simple. What you'll be very happy to hear, Chris, is that I have not on quick draw, but I do have one of those step-by-step documents that I mentioned that says exactly where to go, what to build, and some top tips as well.
Yeah, when I did this the other day, I followed through the tactics library.
Yes, but honestly, this is the best thing I've ever heard. Thank you so much. You've made my day, week, month, year.
So one thing that I was wondering, because if you build the trigger program as well as having the segment, if I had it so that the segment automatically uploaded to .digital, is there a way that then I can get that email to send from that segment via the trigger program to the people in that segment? Does that make sense?
Sorry, no. So tell me that one again. I'm not quite with you.
So currently I'm having to manually pull the segments because we haven't got it integrated in with .digital. But if I did integrate it with .digital and then built this price drop trigger program, would it then be able to send that email that we've put into the trigger program to the people within that segment automatically?
Absolutely. But what you'll be happy to know is that we've just done that. So there's no other steps. So when you create that trigger program, what you will have is, so if we look here, it's offering me a price drop template. I create that program. And then within here, it's the channel. So your channel would be .digital. And it can probably use the same channel as your existing emails, but I will check that one for you. The only reason you might not be is if your setup is defining the mail on the channel. I won't bore you with the details and pragmatics, but I'll take a look and I'll let you know which route you need to take. But there shouldn't be anything new you need to do with .digital to send this out other than creating that template in your ESP. So you would come here and whatever the ID of that email is, that would go in this send message field. And then the cart layout, again, that would work as normal. So it'd be populated with those products. What's also really nice about this is it'll go across multiple products, not just one of them. So if I've viewed 4 products that have all dropped in price, I will be sent all of those in that email as well.
Yeah, so the next bit I need to do then is build the smart block that recommends those price drop products and then drop that into the email template, which is the bit I'm working on currently.
Okay, let me have a little check of your account. It'll probably be a tomorrow jobby. But you can probably duplicate your cart abandonment email and it'll all just work like magic. So
Okay.
if you go to InFresh, if you go to content and then cart layout,
Yep.
what you'll see in there is all of your different cart layouts will be there. You'll just need to identify the one that you're using at the moment in your cart abandon. It's probably the default if I remember last time I looked at your account.
Yeah, it is the default.
So if you click in there, now, can you see that we've got different tabs? So there's cart abandoned, browse abandoned, purchase complete. If you
Yep.
click on the one that says price drop,
Yep.
so essentially, if you're happy with how that is looking, then it's the same content you're already using in your cart and browse abandonment or your cart abandonment. So you can just duplicate that email and this will already be set up with everything you need and you can just wiggle around the sort of verbiage that's already built in Dot.
Okay. I'll take a look at that. Looking at it currently, the price drop element hasn't had any sort of styling or what have you, so I have to edit the layouts to make it a little bit more user friendly.
Yeah, they're so well, I'm looking at this one and it's fairly basic. It should pull in the same styling as on your cart and browse or any of your triggered emails at the moment. What I've found interestingly, because I agree with you, it's not sort of on brand and there's no frills, but actually when you build this into your template with all of your brand colors and the other elements in, then yeah, it doesn't quite seem to, it doesn't look so, I guess, rudimentary. If I do just scroll down for you, you'll see that there is an option to edit the layout. So if you are looking to have a little fiddle with the code, then you can do that. I would recommend that you copy it first because it will be in use by your cart abandonment email. So we don't want there to be a knock on. But yeah, that is absolutely something that we can do. I think so. If I go, I'll show you that documentation. We can look through it together. Where am I going? Help. So in our help area, we have under our how-to articles, we've got a how to create a price drop email. Where is it? Oh no, I think it's in the tactics library actually. So I think it will be under creating urgency. Here we go, a price drop triggered email. So we've gone through the creating of the segment, the rules, generation. So it's the trigger side of it. So when you build your program, this is where you'll say the email that you want to pull out in dot in the channel and that cart layout. So if you do want to use something different, it's that step 2 that will vary for you a little. And then step 3 is where you'd want to add in has not purchased in 30 days, let's say.
Okay.
So they're the 2 slight tweaks to this doc I'd make. But like I said, I'll just double check that your channel's all ready to go. I'll have a bit of a look at your cart layout. But of course, if you do want to go all code whizzy on it, I'd love to see what you create.
I'll give it a go. I'm not great with code at the moment, but I'll see what I can pull together.
Absolutely. And our support team, again, their address is on our homepage. So if you do run into any difficulties, then drop them a note. One thing to be aware of is that you'll definitely want was and now prices. So Chris, we've got that popped in that cart layout now. So yeah, we want to make sure we won't delete that code out, because otherwise it's a bit of a flat price drop email if we're not showing the discounts. But other than that, I don't think there's any particular concerns. If I do just go back to the segment, I just wanted to show you that actually we could do different price drops for different products, different ranges, for example. So if you only wanted to be sending out emails based on price drops for your mattress toppers, for example, we can use the product field rule. Ooh. And then look at tags, in which case you would have is any of, and then you could type in mattress toppers, for example, and that would create a price drop, but it would only be looking at that tag of products. You could do it right down to specific SKUs as well, for example. So, if you've got some bestsellers that you want to trigger on to test the water, then you could do something like that. You also might want to exclude certain products. So yeah, I suppose pillows probably aren't that high value alone. Whether it drives traffic to the site is an interesting question, but yeah, maybe you want to exclude the pillow category just because you don't want to create the noise with lower value products. So maybe we only want to show products that are mattresses, toppers and beds, so those big ticket items.
Cool, that's handy to know. Because ultimately, we want to get to a point of personalization where we're sending personalized emails depending on what people have been looking at. And I think to start, it'll be a catch-all, and then we refine it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're going at it from a great angle. You're really looking at those behavioral targeting triggers as a whole. So, we've already talked about those 3: browsing, cart, and post-purchase recently. But yeah, looking at those sort of sequenced, and then what you'll be able to do is start unhooking where sort of you can use this for your BAU campaigns or any product launches, things like that, is where I think that level 2 will lie for you. So I think that was sort of all the features. Did you have any other questions or use cases? There is another 5 minutes. Oh, we've got a purple G, my favorite time of day.
Not off the top of my head, no. But this has been really helpful because it's given me a few ideas on what I can do with the behavioral targeting, and I didn't realize that you could narrow it down with roles post segmentation. So that's good to know.
Absolutely. And these product fields, we looked at the tag, but you can get at all sorts of thing about the products. So, ratings and reviews, if we're looking at that social proof element, we can start looking at pricing, and not just the regular or current price, but the differences between them as well. as well as obviously any currencies and languages that you're running with. There's arguments as to whether you refine the segment or the rules on the trigger. I would always try and refine the segment first and then the rules the other side, just because then you're making sure that you're very aware of what those contact numbers will be. Oh, there is one other thing I do want to show you actually. One thing to consider with a price drop is how it sequences against your other triggered emails. So, for example, if someone is midway through a cart abandonment sequence, would we want to send them a price drop email, or would we want to continue them on that cart abandonment? Cart abandon, I think you'd probably still do the price drop. But what we can do is that you can use the person history and use recent signal so that then you can suppress emails across your campaign. So you could say, if the person has received a price drop in the last week, then don't send them a cart abandonment or something like that. So that we can make sure that you're not over contacting individuals with the other campaigns you've got along. Generally, it's the browse abandonment that I'd suppress across the board. You might want to suppress purchase completes, but that hasn't purchased rule should get you there as well.
Cool, that's good to know, definitely.
Fabulous. Wow. I think that was it from me. G, was there anything from your perspective you wanted to share?
No, I think you, Chris, you're off to a flying start. I think you've got some really good suggestions of how to use those elements of the platform to cover all those different use cases. So excited to see what you come up with.
That's two for excitement, Chris. 3 if you want to join the bandwagon.
I am. I'm excited to see what I can do as well.